What's up, investors? It's the Russian Dude, and thank God it's Monday, podcast is back. Today we have Paul, more commonly to you guys known as Combat Veteran Reacts. Finally, a very interesting guest on this podcast/interview. Very excited to have you here, Paul. So can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here. As you said, I'm Paul. I'm the face of Combat Veteran Reacts. If you guys haven't seen the channel, it actually began as a React channel, hence the name. But during the Ukraine war, there was such a demand for analysis, and well, given that I was a soldier in Afghanistan, a lot of people valued my insight, and so now that's really what I do on the channel is cover not just Ukraine, but kind of the whole geopolitical space, right? Because in this day and age, everything is connected. There's no just Ukraine or just Israel, Gaza, or just China. There's so much interplay that, yeah, it takes a whole channel to do the analysis.
So obviously coming from the name of your channel, Combat Veteran Reacts, and in this YouTube space, we do have a very big lack of trustworthy people, like people with the credit. I don't know how to say it in English, but basically you don't go to a doctor who never finished his medical school or anything like this. So what makes you a very trustworthy source is that once again you actually served war in the military, you are a combat veteran. Once again, that's why the name. If you don't mind, you mentioned Afghanistan. Can you please share some of your combat experience? Obviously, no graphic details, nothing like this, but can you share this experience, please, with us?
Sure. Yeah, of course. So I was on active duty in the U.S. Army from 2009 to about 2013. During that time, I was actually in a military police unit. I was an officer. And my unit deployed to Afghanistan. We were attached to 1st Brigade, 101st Airborne. So we were sent to the eastern part of the country. Our assigned sector was really on the Pakistan border. We had sort of outside of Jalalabad city. And for us as military police, people don't conventionally say, oh, military police, that's not a combat role. But one, this was during the surge in 2010, 2011, where if you were pretty much a warm body and could carry a rifle, you were going to be patrolling. You were going to be outside the wire doing that kind of work. And two, in Afghanistan, the nation building mission was so central to police that in effect, police were combat troops. They took casualties on par with the Afghan army, Afghan border force. And so for the U.S. military, our military police forces ended up being really, really active combat troops. And for us, that meant conducting operations, side by side, shoulder to shoulder with the Afghan army, Afghan border police, Afghan, they call them national police, sort of like their beat cops. And yeah, for us, in terms of, we were fighting something very different from what you see in Ukraine. We were fighting a counterinsurgency. Sorry, I just got back from the gym, so I am like still actively perspiring, right? The life of a YouTuber. And so, yeah, for fighting a counterinsurgency, it differs from Ukraine like pretty substantially because there isn't a fixed enemy position. They're an insurgent force. They pop up, they attack, and then they withdraw. They melt into the population. And so finding the enemy requires 90% of your effort. And that meant that we conducted an extensive amount of combat patrols. So we would have a fixed base where we would resupply, where we would shower, refit our ammo, where our operation cell was. But then we would spend, I'd say 80 to 90% of our time going around Afghanistan, trying to help them build governance, but really trying to find insurgent forces. The combat would often be very short and very intense. So, for example, you would hit an IED, an improvised explosive device. Think like a homemade mine, essentially. You might hit one of those, and then the insurgents would have a pre-prepared ambush position. They would engage with small arms fire. We'd fight back. But then very quickly, the insurgents would often disappear before, for example, we could call in air support or we could call in our QRF. And so it had obviously combat is one of those things where the principles are the same everywhere and have probably been the principles since the dawn of time. Strong leadership, a good plan, being prepared, maintaining your cool, situational awareness. All of those principles remain the same, but the changes in warfare that have happened since 2011 to today in Ukraine, because I was also in Ukraine 6 months ago, and I was outside of Touretsk, but it is like the combat is night and day. It is so vastly different.
You did mention you are in Ukraine. This was part of one of my next questions, so we're definitely going to get back to this. But so far, first of all, obviously, thank you for your service, even though I'm not American, but I'm most certainly I'm almost certain that a lot of American viewers will appreciate your service. So thank you so much for your service, just being the voice of the majority. So you did mention once again night and day difference between fighting Ukraine, Afghanistan, other places. In Russia, once again, I was in the Russian military. I do hold a lieutenant rank. I'm in the reserve. Don't tell anyone. Here we are broadcasting for 20,000 people, I guess. But my people, they know it. But long story short, we are told, especially since the USSR times, you obviously know the Soviets were also in the war in Afghanistan. We are told that Afghan people, they might look like they're just Bedouins living in desert, knowing nothing except war. But that's the thing. They know nothing except war. So we were told to treat them like this is the nation that never lost a war. What about from the American side? Like, do you treat Afghanistan as a very serious enemy or something you just control, don't let expand, don't let some religious extremists go outside the country? Do you consider Afghanistan as a very serious battlefield, a serious war zone?
Yeah, I mean, the proof is in the pudding, right? Like, the U.S. doesn't control Afghanistan today; the Taliban do. So anybody that tells you that they aren't skilled, capable warriors is obviously not even looking at the evidence. What is interesting about insurgencies is that they have a different sort of victory condition, right? The Taliban, again, would never stand and fight, go toe to toe with the American military. We had too much firepower, but firepower doesn't translate to victory, right? Obviously, if firepower was the same thing as victory, the Russians would be in Kiev. And so the fact is that the Taliban maintained a level of, they were so effective at operating in Afghan society. They were really excellent at remaining hidden until they wanted to be seen. And ultimately, in some ways, it parallels the way that the Ukrainian military is fighting right now, where there is a focus on efficiency and there is a focus on only standing and fighting at times and places that are beneficial to your strategic vision, right? And because ultimately it came down to the fact that the U.S. military, we spent nearly $1 trillion. We spent thousands of American lives and 20 years in Afghanistan, and we were still unable to meaningfully reduce the number of Taliban and other insurgent forces. So at the end of the day, again, that strategy can and did work.
But so long story short, as far as I understood that, yes, Americans also consider Afghanistan as a very serious enemy, something like to maybe lightly mess around with. That once again, if a nation only knows war for the last 2-3 generations, they are pretty skilled in what they do, because that is literally that's their whole life, I would say at this point, right?
Right.
So yeah, now I guess let's transition to Ukraine. You did make a very good transition earlier, saying that you went there 6 months ago and you were in Touretsk. So once again, why did you decide to go? What did you do there, and how was your experience? How long you've been there?
Sure. So I've been working probably for almost 2 years now with Ukraine Aid Ops. They are an NGO that raises funds, but really equipment for Ukrainian units. And what I think the reason, I like working with them for a variety of reasons, but the biggest one is that they get the requests directly from the units in the fighting. It's not someone else's idea of what the units need. The units themselves will say, hey, we need this type of drone, this type of EcoFlow. We need thermal blankets. And UAO will take those requests and say, okay, here's the unit that needs them. Here is why. and let's try to fundraise and fulfill as much of those requests as possible. So one of the fundraisers we did, I was like, hey, if we reach this pie in the sky goal, I was like, I'll deliver it to the units myself, right? And lo and behold, the audience stepped up, raised that fundraiser. I think it was like $200,000. It was something preposterous, and so I was like, well, I gotta make good on it. And so UAO, of course, was happy to have me go out there, right? Profile what they did, profile the units they work with. There was also an element of it where it was, done for me. There is an element of, you can only cover a war from your bedroom, or in this case, my refitted garage, for so long before you say, hey, listen, I have to see this on the ground. I have to learn about the things. I have to see this for myself. And it definitely felt like it had gotten to that point. And I don't know to what extent you've experienced this, but like when I started covering the war, I really was like, okay, I'm an analyst, I'm a reporter, I don't have a side, I want people to have information. But the longer I did that and reported just simply true, accurate things to the best of my ability, the more I ended up becoming targeted by Russia. I had my channel hacked through a Russian sort of hacking scheme to basically claim that they had copyright over all my content. There was obviously there's tons of troll comments. Several times a week, I get sort of quasi-threatening messages from Russian accounts. And so yeah, it was one of those things where I became less and less neutral the more I felt like, oh, Russia has a personal vendetta against me. The more I was like, well, it's not a big deal if if I'm going to go, like, obviously I'm going to go and support these Ukrainian units, talk to those guys. Yeah, so it's sort of a case of like, if being neutral is being pro-Ukrainian, I guess is the way I would put it. And so that definitely made me feel like when I went there that like I was welcomed. I wasn't treated with suspicion or like, oh, what's this guy going to say about us? I mean, again, it's when you're doing the right thing, you welcome YouTubers coming in and going around. So yeah, what we ended up doing while we were there is we visited some units in Kiev. I did a lot of interviews with them, and then we went out east and we spent some time with near Toretsk and near Pokrovsk with the 93rd and then with the guys from the Liut Brigade, both of which were just awesome guys. It was fascinating to see their work. Really cool to see a lot of these drone headquarters and how these drone units operated. Again, this was 6 months ago, so everybody's position has moved and changed, and there's not much operational information that I could put out now. That was like close hold back then.
Yeah, makes sense. Like not asking you to reveal any secret information or anything. You did mention once again. So you went to Ukraine once again. You are speaking English, I'm assuming. I don't know if you know Ukrainian or not. So those majority of soldiers, were you able to easily communicate with them then, or you had some kind of a translator with you?
We had translators with Ukraine Aid Ops. Everywhere we went, we had at least one translator. Except when we were in Toretsk or heading towards Toretsk, because of a scheduling conflict, our translator couldn't come. So it was me and my cameraman and one of the UAO staff who speaks only English and Dutch, and a Ukrainian escort. And that's where we went, like past the military checkpoints into the military zone. We actually couldn't even make it to the brigade's headquarters because we got basically spotted by an FPV drone, and we had to hide in a house and they basically outrun it or let the jammers have I don't know if the jammer took care of it, but certainly it was close enough that we could hear it buzzing. Yeah, and in that instance, we couldn't actually communicate with our military like escort. We just had to kind of go off of vibes. But FPV is apparently universal. So, and when he starts running, we start running. You can communicate as clearly as you need to.
So in this case, you, I guess, I'm assuming, obviously came there as a American citizen. Were you treated by the Ukrainian soldiers, by other people as a citizen of foreign countries? So were they restricting you to, hey, don't go there, it's military combat, we don't want Americans dying Ukraine because it can cause like international scandal or anything like this, or they were like, okay, like do whatever you want kind of thing?
I think because I was with volunteers that had existing relationships, that we were able to get in and out of everywhere. I think the Ukrainian military is large, but it is not that big. And so I think the guys there were known, I think, as long as I was with them. I think they're also very happy to see Americans, and I think they're very happy to see someone like me, right? An American YouTuber who goes out there, who's willing to tell their stories, obviously do help fundraise for them. So I think all that made a tremendous, they knew that, and they were welcoming, super welcoming to us. There's one unit actually, that was an artillery, what we would call a fire direction center in the U.S. And one of their soldiers had been a fine dining chef in before the war, and so he made us, like, with just their military rations and some other stuff they could kind of buy on the market, this like phenomenal, like a 3-course meal. It was delicious. It was the best I ate in the entire week I was there. And it was just in a random like sandbagged house in an abandoned town in the military zone. Really interesting stuff.
I can almost even see the question from the people watching this. So what was this meal? What was it?
Okay, so he had like a kasha or kashka salad. There was also like a barley salad of sorts. And then he made like a honey glazed chicken wings. I don't know where he got chicken wings. And then there was some kind of like porridge dessert. I can't really tell you exactly what was in it, but it was a porridge like dessert. It was excellent. It was all excellent.
I'm already getting hungry. I guess that's the most basic thing anyone can say. But yeah, I mean, honey glazed chicken wings. Wow.
The thing
like,
was crazy
credible.
is that this was in the military. Like, the house was powered by a generator for a couple hours a day. Like, they literally couldn't, like, you couldn't park overhead because the drones would be watching. Like, that was what impressed me, was just like these guys were in a literal war zone, and they could prepare all this, which was impressive. And then they chose to prepare all this for us, which was like, again, really, really like welcoming of them.
Yep. I agree. Like the post-Soviet people, Slavic people, I mean, Russians including them, because not all Russians are bad. We are welcoming. So yeah, glad that you enjoyed the experience. Couple of words about myself, if you don't mind. Like, I do also have a quarter of my family is from Ukraine. So yes, I'm very glad to hear that you had a very welcoming, very hospitable stay. So that's very good. Another question also potentially I can see from the audience is that, once again, how easy it is to even come to Ukraine with all the war going. Like the airspace closed. Like, obviously you crossed it, I'm assuming, by land, the border. So how easy was it even to enter Ukraine and to be there?
It was actually very easy. It's funny, even like here at home, I am not the only person in my like friend group that's been to Ukraine. We actually have we have a little poker group that I play with about once a month. And yeah, there's at least one other person who has made several trips to Ukraine, not affiliated with me at all. He goes as a volunteer doing some mental health stuff. But as he says, he's like, listen, he's only been to Lviv, but he's like, I love it. It's easy to get in. You don't need a visa. There is still a tourism industry within the country. Small though it is, hotels still want to be in business, right? Restaurants still want to have business. And so, yeah, it's actually, the hardest part is just the logistics of getting to the border. And then you have to travel via train everywhere. But again, there's the overnight trains, which is something we don't really have as much in the US. But in some ways that makes it easier, because you just sleep on the train, you wake up, you're in Kiev, you're in Kramatorsk, you're in Dnipro, wherever you're headed. And that makes it's actually not too much of a challenge to get around. Again, the hardest part just being the getting really from like getting to a border crossing point and then over the border.
Yeah. So yes, obviously, as assumed, that's a lot of train travel involved. And so once again, you did mention cities like Kramatorsk, which is already very close to the eastern part of Ukraine. So how dangerous are those train rides? Like whenever you're in the train, do you hear already the sounds of war, or they do not get too close to the front lines? How's it happening?
Generally, we on the trains, you didn't really see that much of an issue. Again, the trains would sometimes stop, and Ukrainian police would do ID checks, which of course makes sense, right? Me and my cameraman, we're military age males. They're going to be like, "Hey, what do you guys doing riding a train? What are you guys doing riding a train to Kramatorsk?" But no, we never really encountered like tracks being destroyed by explosions or saboteurs or anything. You would get notifications on your phone that when there were drone attacks likely in the nearby cities. For example, if there was drone strikes on Kiev, and if we were within 100 miles of Kiev, they would ping your cell phone and say, "Hey, shelter, missile drone strike incoming, possibly incoming." In general, at this point, I think everyone in Ukraine is so inured to it. One, there's not much you can do on a train, but everyone else is just so kind of used to that. It's been years that you just sort of deal with it by saying, "Oh yeah, if it happens, it happens." Which sounds insane, but actually in Afghanistan, I saw the same thing where there would be daily or nightly sort of rocket attacks or mortars, and your first 2 weeks there, you take them really seriously. You go shelter in the bunkers, but then eventually you're like, they almost never, like, the Taliban almost never had a rocket hit even a place on a base that was occupied by anybody, let alone your place. So you just sort of slept through it. You had to get used to it, because otherwise you would exhaust yourself, right? Being that tense for years at a time, you just can't do it.
Yep. I mean, I cannot say I agree, but yes, that is exactly the experience I also hear from my Ukrainian family, part of the family. They live in Vinnytsia, by the way, so it's not even that close relatively to the front lines, but they still have there some sort of, let's call it like loud noises.
Yeah.
To generalize, I guess. Yes. Yeah, exactly the same thing. They said that I eventually get used to it. It's not, unfortunately, I guess, for better or worse. It's not something that they too much pay attention to. They kind of follow the very basic protocols, but it's nothing extreme as going to the basement anymore, storing your shelves with like canned food for months just in case. So yeah, like once again, I agree, I guess, quote unquote. So obviously you're also mentioning you were with the operator filming all these videos. I'm assuming we can find those videos on your channel, right? This is not the end of the interview because it sounds like, but no, I just want to have a nice clean transition for people to check out your channel. So you do have some of these videos on your channel, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's a video sort of telling the story of the whole trip. There's some videos of my interviews with the soldiers. A lot actually of the interviews, we were never able to get permission to release them. And again, we're here to respect the Ukrainian command's decision. We obviously, want to be welcomed back, and that means respecting if they're like, "Hey, a lot of times I don't even think it's because anything discussed was really controversial. I think it's more like whoever's responsible for approving it has, other stuff going on, like, a war to fight. So I'm not, so somewhere in the archive at some point, I'll drop a whole bunch of these interviews. But yeah, there's definitely some good interviews, and then a really good long form video of kind of the whole trip.
Perfect. So then once again, that's not the end. Guys, don't close the video yet. Just go ahead and check after watching this interview, go ahead and check Combat Veteran React YouTube channel, see those videos. I'm like, whenever you're telling these stories, I was like literally clearly imagining those things. I did not even need to close my eyes to imagine these train stations, Ukraine police stopping, checking your ID. Hey guys, what are you going? What are you doing? Hiding in the abandoned house from the FPV drones. But like, I literally imagined this in front of my eyes without even closing my eyes. So I'm certain, like, if I see the actual video, it's going to be just even more than this. So guys, definitely go ahead and check Paul's channel to see these videos for yourself. Couple more questions now. The very last one is going to be traditional, I guess, for this type of podcasts and interviews. But first, another question. So a lot of war, especially in Russia, I guess maybe in America as well, not as much as in Russia, but still, the war in Russia on TV shows, in the movies, is getting like romanticized. Like it's so good to go to war. You're gonna be in nice, clean uniforms, brotherhood, camaraderie, playing guitars around the fireplace, shooting a couple of bullets from time to time. Don't worry, no danger to your life. You're gonna come back as a hero, things like this. You, as a person who actually experienced those things, what's the expectation and the reality? I don't think this is the place that a person, a sane person, would want to be. I'm assuming. I never been there. I don't plan to go there. But is this romanticization of a war like legitimate? Does it need to be this way? Like, what's the purpose of these things? What's the expectation and reality, basically?
Yeah. So it is one of the most, I mean, there's a reason that for hundreds of years, writers, artists have written about war. And it's because, well, it's complicated and it's multifaceted. And, you know, when they survey American veterans, like veterans of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, they find 94% are glad to have served and would serve and would, if they would do it all again. And then when they interviewed wounded veterans, they found that 96% said they were proud to have served and would do it again. And so there is an element of like the camaraderie you have as soldiers, the camaraderie you have with your unit. It's truly something special. It is a unique human relationship. Like just the way that there's no substitute for a child's love for their mom. There's no substitute for your relationship to a brother or a sister, right? Like the relationship between like brothers in arms is unique and special. And you can't have a discussion of war without acknowledging that. That said, it's also like horrific, right? Like the suffering, the killing of people to achieve some political aim it's irredeemably bad, right? It is a bad thing. Every person who dies or is wounded in war, like their lives should be spent in a more productive way, right? Like that's human beings. They should be raising their kids. They should be working civilian jobs. Like they shouldn't have to be doing these things. And so obviously governments have an incentive to boost recruitment. They want to push a rosy view of the military. The US did it in Iraq and Afghanistan, right? There was tons and tons of military recruitment posters, and they would have the military. In fact, the Army was found to have paid millions of dollars to the NFL to fly, have aircraft do flyovers at NFL games and bring out soldiers to, stand and salute during the national anthem. Those were recruitment efforts. And so governments, of course, have an incentive to do those things and to whitewash the bad. But even among people who see and experience the reality of war, it's not good, but it's meaningful. Maybe that's the best way to put it, right? It's deeply meaningful. It's deeply horrible. It shouldn't happen. But like, I'd be like, oh, would I have rather gone home from Afghanistan or not gone to Ukraine? No, of course not, because it would have still happened no matter what. So I can't imagine allowing my soldiers to experience that and me not having been there, right? And that's part of, I think, what drove me to be like, hey, I should see Ukraine for myself, to be like, hey, I can't sit behind a computer screen and talk about this. So I guess I know that's not like a conventional answer per se, but again, I think there is a vast difference. And also worth noting, there is a tremendous difference. The number of Russians killed in Ukraine per day is roughly equal to the number of soldiers killed per year in Iraq and Afghanistan. So the scale of suffering, particularly within the Russian military, and the Russian military's willingness to incur casualties to make marginal gains, is unprecedented in the 21st century. There's almost no war that has experienced that level of casualty. So that's also worth discussing, is that it seems like the life expectancy of a Russian recruit is unbelievably low, and it is grisly. It's grisly even to someone who has served in combat in other militaries in another war.
Yeah, unfortunately, I do have some friends relatives, acquaintances who did go to fight in Ukraine. Most of them, they were dragged there against their will. Some survived as long as 2 years. Some survived as long as 2 months. So yeah, life expectancy of Russian recruit is incredibly low.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's
Yes,
awful.
yeah, thank you. And you said it's unconventional answer, but that is a really nice, not nice, like new perspective to the answering this question, because yeah, pretty much everyone I met in my life was like, no, I'm not going to go to war. That's horrible thing. So that is a new perspective for me. And I'm sure for many new people, for many viewers of this video will be as well, because once again, you are the actual person who went there, who can say, like, I experienced this. This is what I think. And then now, final question, which is going to be a quick question, quick answer, open to interpretation to the audience. That's the whole thing about this. If you're in front of Putin, what will you ask him?
You know, Putin is a master manipulator. So whatever you ask him, it's going to be spin. And so there's not actually a lot of information that Putin would be willing to tell me. But now if I could somehow get into his brain, if I could peel back the bullshit and the lies and everything else, I would want to understand the core why. Like, why invade Ukraine? Like, is it because of Alexander Dugin's writing about the resurgent Russia? Is it because he just, in some part of him, he has to be remembered like Peter the Great or these other Russian kings whose legacy was defined by conquest? Like, or is it something else? Right? I would love to know, like, if I could somehow, in his most truthful, understand like what is his actual motivation for doing this thing, because it's so costly, it's so complicated. It's not even clear that he knows what he wants, because he was offered a recklessly, I think, good deal by the by the White House. I think it was pretty problematic how much they were willing to give him, right, recognizing his territorial claims. So yeah, I would just want to know, like, what made you look at that and think, like, what makes you be like, I have to keep this killing going?
That is the question I would say 90% of us have as well to this guy. Well, that's, I guess, pretty much it. Thanks so much, Paul, Combat Veteran Reacts. I will leave all your links down below. If you have any other final words, promotions, or anything like this, now is the perfect time to do it.
Oh, yeah. So, of course, as always, I got to talk about my company, Strike Gum. For the origin story actually is pretty fun, because, you know, when I was in Afghanistan, they had they issued soldiers military issue energy drinks. They were utterly disgusting. They were, and if you've ever had like an energy drink in the 130-degree heat of the desert, it's truly a scarring experience. And I was like, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way to do this. And so yeah, I found actually in the U.S. a manufacturer. We worked together. We tried a whole bunch of different variations, and we finally settled on Strike Gum. I'll throw it up here. But it has an energy drink's worth of caffeine, no sugar. But the best part is that it's in a piece of gum. So you can put it in your pocket, put it in your gym bag. It goes where you go. You can get it at strikegum.com. You can get it on Amazon. Actually, we delivered it when we went and delivered all the supplies to the Ukrainian units. And we also gave all of them a tray of Strike Gum. Or just like, hey, man, who doesn't love caffeine? And what we got as the feedback is that drone pilots love it, which makes sense because they're wearing the FPV goggles, right? So you can't sip a Red Bull with the goggles on. You can't even see it. But gum, you can chew it. So literally we had one of the drone units reach back out and we're like, send more gum. So I'm like, if it's good enough for them, it's going to be good enough for, the dad looking to work out more, the night shift cop. And the data is clear. 50% of people that chew a single piece of Strike Gum reorder. So you'd be crazy not to try it.
Yes, I will leave then these links down below as well, link to your channel, to Strike Gum, anything else you want me to share, everything will be, guys, down below in the description. As always, as we YouTubers know, as soon as we start saying outros, people start just closing the videos, so let's make it short. Thank you once again, Paul, for joining, Combat Veteran Reacts. Thank you guys so much for watching, and this was the Russian Dude, and thank God it's Monday podcast. Thanks so much.
All right, see ya. Thanks.